There she is.
There she is.
She is in the guest room.
Hey, Constance.
Hi.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming to this session. For those of you who, after the previous two keynotes, were looking forward to more of that, we promise to disappoint you. There's no way we could match our previous keynotes, but this is more a session to talk about what brought us to this point with Connected Learning Summit and to talk about the future. So we should all introduce ourselves just in case you don't know us.
Sure. So I'm Mimi Ito. I'm director of the Connected Learning Lab at UC Irvine, and here to sort of represent some of the background on the DML conference and that aspect of the community. Yeah.
And I'm Scott Oswald. I'm the creative director of the Education Arcade. I work with Eric Klopfer in the Scheller Teacher Education Program here at MIT.
I'm Kurt Squire, I'm professor at UCI, along with Mimi and my wife, who's being projected behind us. I was one of the co-organizers of the GLS conference, and I think to some extent I'm here just in case that didn't work.
And Scott, you should mention Sandbox.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Right, and I guess one of the first things we want to do is sort of talk about the conferences that sort of preceded this one. And so I was involved actually, what I really wanted to do was start by asking people where they've attended, right? So, so we want a quick show of hands. How many of you
introduce our team?
Oh yes, right. Constance, can you introduce yourself?
Hi. Yeah, Constance Steinkuhler. I ran the Games Learning and Society Conference for 12 years, and now I'm here at UCI. So that's it.
So very quickly, how many of you have previously attended a DML, a Digital Media Literacy Conference? What do we think that's about, a third?
Yeah. Maybe, yeah.
How many of you have previously attended Games Learning and Society? About another third.
Similar,
Some,
yeah.
How many of you have previously attended Sandbox Summit?
Oh, well.
Oh, more than I expected. Okay, great. So,
and how many are totally new to all of the events? Woo! Welcome! Oh, that's awesome. That was the biggest number.
Yeah.
This is really great.
That's great.
Super exciting, yeah.
So we're going to just start by quickly talking about the conferences that sort of preceded this as a way of sort of framing why we organized this the way we did. So should you start?
Yeah, sure. So for those of you who weren't part of the DML conference or initiative in the past, MacArthur had funded the Digital Media and Learning Initiative for about a dozen years, and it was, the DML conference was the origin story. It was initially more of a grantees meeting that eventually became an annual conference that attracted a broader community than just the grantee community. And the DML initiative formally wound down actually this year, earlier this year. And, a couple of years before, I think we ran 10 DML conferences, is that right? And a few years before we knew that the initiative was winding down, we started to think about whether we would continue running an annual event. And for those of you who are DMLers, you probably recall DML 2016, which was in that hotel in downtown LA in the dark space in the basement with no windows when they were doing construction. And then Julie Stash, the president of the MacArthur Foundation, Skyped in and sort of gave her thank yous and farewells. And sort of that was the moment where we started to plot about what the future of the event would be like. And it took us a couple of years to get to this point, but we're happy to share a little bit more about what went into the planning of this event. But that's kind of the background where we saw DML transforming into an initiative to a community and felt really committed to keeping that community supported through an annual event.
And or Constance, do you want to talk about GLS, its history?
Sure. I mean, GLS, we ran for 12 years, and we just ended it in 2016 was our last year. And, when it first started, it was originally kind of like DML. It was originally a meeting put together on Spencer Foundation money to build out kind of a position statement around the potential of games. We had such a great turnout the first year that we decided to do it the next year. And every year I would say, do we really need to do this another year? And people wanted to do it again. So it ran for 12 years. And we ended it there as part of the conversation of what we're doing right now, of sort of rolling out an event that would be bigger and a bit more synthetic across our communities.
And then just briefly, Sandbox was actually started by Claire Green and Wendy Smolin, two people who had strong ties to children's media in general. And they started it as a conference to try to introduce people who worked in children's media more to the sort of the kind of academic ideas that were brewing around the value of play, children's play. After a few years, they realized that it made sense to try to keep it at MIT. So because Mitchell Resnick and I had both been on the advisory board, so we held it for about 5 or 6 years here at MIT. And it's a long story as to why it stopped happening, but it did. But it was a little smaller. It was smaller than the other two conferences, a little more boutique-y, and more expensive to come to. But the one thing that was kind of sweet about it was getting more industry types talking to, in conversation with those of us who sort of are working more on the academic side of the field. So.
Yeah, and then just to share a little bit of the history, the backstory behind the Connected Learning Summit. So I think the seeds of it were sown when we successfully recruited Kurt and Constance to UCI. So, that was when, we started to seriously think about what it would mean to connect our communities in a new way. And then I had a fateful, I think it was a breakfast with Eric at the Kendall Hotel and the little cafe where we were just chatting, and Eric said, "What's happening with GLS? What's happening with DML? And would it make sense to partner with MIT?" And I think it was an enthusiastic yes at that point. And that's when we had a few planning meetings to just figure out, what the shared vision and values and the branding and all of that. And I think as we were talking, what really became exciting is that for those of us running these different events, which, were kind of defined by platforms, so games, children's media, digital media in our case, it really became clear that what we felt was the core of our community was actually not the technology or the platform, but the vision and values around learning and progress and justice. And that's what really made us different from, say, the big ed tech events or, events that were about a particular professional community, because those are massive events that are absolutely necessary for our work. But I think what we felt our communities, the events that we had been running, had as sort of the beating heart of our events was actually not, the kind of professional, sort of more, I don't want to say instrumental in the bad way, but it's like kind of traditional peer review, get ahead in your career, networking events. And it was also different from, the events like ISTE that really are about putting new technologies in front of teachers and purchasers and that kind of big industry vibe. That what we really had was a community who was committed to progress and a very specific vision of learning. So when you look at, I feel like sitting in on all the sessions, like it's just been very delightful to me to see that, we have people working across very different industries, using very different technologies, and some people not using technology at all, but being totally uncompromising about what we want learning to look like and our shared values around progress, justice, equity, and that we are totally uncompromising as a community. And I think when we were sitting around together and we were talking about like the words that would go into the name of the summit, the tagline of the summit, that's why you see the words create, play, mobilize to indicate the learning values around playful, hands-on learning. and also the social values around mobilizing for equity and justice, that those were the things that we decided were going to be the core thing of the event, and the technologies will continue to evolve. And the term Connected Learning Summit was really a pivot to signal that it's not about a particular technology or platform, but an approach to learning and to working together.
And I think some of that, to me, what's part of the pleasure, and some of this I felt at GLS in the old days too, is the sense, the diversity of voices. I would recommend, if you get a chance, go to at least one research paper session where you get to hear people who are doing like some serious scholarship about stuff, but I also really love the sense that someone else might just be saying, I had this idea and I want to try it out on you, or I've been tinkering with this thing and I want to show it to you even before it's done. And the kinds of things that people in the narrowly academic spaces are afraid to do, I feel like you all have voices here for that too, and that to me is important.
Kurt and Constance, I know you're sort of flying blind because you can't actually see. We can see you very
You're
big and beautiful on the screen. But I don't know if you want to talk about, your sort of hopes and aspirations for this new instance of our work.
Well, I think I was reflecting on this issue this morning, getting ready for the talk. And I think when GLS was founded, the notion that games might even be considered a platform for learning was pretty novel and daring. So in a way, we kind of needed to collect the voices that were willing to tinker in that space. But 10 years later, we kind of accomplished it. We no longer had to make this sort of plausibility case. We had built evidence that games indeed were one of those platforms for learning. And at some point, in the creation of organizations and institutions, we always create them. We know how to create them sometimes, most of the time, but we don't really know how to transition them or end them, right? Like that's not part of how we think about bureaucracy or organizations. And yet, like with GLS, one of the things that we saw was that we had a really strong community of people I think are absolutely the top-notch game learning people in the world. But 10 years into it, we had made that argument persuasive. In fact, we had even seen the transition finally to where games for learning were integrated into the mainstream market. So we had really kind of managed not only to convince education researchers and practitioners, but we had also seen product available on the market that was open and no longer sort of in this pink silo, as I like to call it. So one of the important strategies for blending our communities was because, as you had said earlier, Mimi, we don't need to separate by platform anymore. In fact, I would argue it's probably better for our scholarly work that we do more synthetic work, right? We no longer have to make the argument in games that, oh my God, everyone, games can actually teach you something. Like that is mostly over. And now we need to get on with the business of actually creating beautiful designs, creating designs that are competitive in the market, and connecting our research and our efforts more synthetically. And I think that that's what this event promises to do.
Oh, I don't have much really to add, other than I think one of the things that, and you hear this echoed, I think, through all the comments, but I always liked about GLS was a sense of people coming together on relatively equal footing to tackle these problems. So the idea that you have teachers, designers, developers, policymakers all coming in and each having an equal voice and everyone being on the same footing is something I've really liked, and it's great to see that emerge here as well. I feel like we've captured that with this convening.
I have to say one other thing about that I particularly liked about GLS, because that's the one, along with Sandbox, that I only got to one DML. So, but was that it felt a little bit like summer camp, and it felt a little bit relaxed. There was time. And so I want to really quickly. Did we come at all close to being like summer camp here? I just want to show hands if you agree to this. All right. Well, that's the goal, is to keep it like summer camp, because I think we bring our best selves that way.
Yeah.
So. That's true. There used to be beer and brats.
Beer and
Yeah.
brats back.
Well, I will say that it was designed that way. From the very beginning, our advisory board said this event is about networking, not about, more than anything else, it's about building relationships. So, having those long breaks between sessions so people talk, having places that people congregate without the awkwardness, like if you give them, either a place to get food or sugar or alcohol, one of those, they know they can congregate there safely and not feel socially isolated or awkward, because we're all a bunch of, in some ways, we're all kind of nerds. And so I think there's real truth in that, right? I think the summer camp part is that if we're not, I don't know, I really believe in the potential of play for learning. And as academics, if we can't do that for ourselves and create, events that we actually want to attend, then we're not doing it right. So I don't know. I'm very jealous to not be in Boston at MIT campus. I think that's pretty exciting. We are, however, not to trump you, Scott, but we're about to have it out here next year. So let the campfires continue, and let's do whatever we can to keep it so that people not only, sort of tribalize in their own groups, but actually connect to new people.
So we're going to be transitioning to sort of an open conversation, because this is really an occasion to hear from you all how things have been going the past 2 days, your suggestions and ideas for our future. We have a few thoughts, I think, about what we'd like to, what we feel is missing, what we'd like to work on, but there's a standing mic, so in order for Constance to hear, you really do need to be speaking into the mic. We really want to open up the conversation, so.
Yeah.
But I don't know,
Yeah,
Kurt,
sure.
you want to start us off with?
Sure. Well, actually, to piggyback on that sort of campfire, the side tribes, I think something that it's great that's happening, but I would love to see even more. I would throw out is just the kind of birds of the feather.
Interest groups.
Interest groups, yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of popped into some of the teacher-educator groups, and I think having more of that. So I hope people can do and will feel empowered to say, oh, I really want to get, tackle something new. Or I don't know if Owen's out there, but we talked previously about a festival with GLS, and it, sometimes came together, sometimes not. There you are. But things like that, where people I think should feel free to say, this is our event, this is your event. So if there are things you want to do, meetups you want to have, we feel empowered to run with them. I think that's one of the things I would love to see really continue.
And so therefore, I guess if we hear from you about if there's ways in which the event was organized this time that either were favorable to that or that could be more favorable in the future in terms of getting groups organized, that we'd want to hear that. In terms of Sandbox, the one thing we haven't yet hit is I think we haven't had enough industry people here. And it's for an obvious reason, which is that industry people don't apply to conferences to come. They need to be invited. And yet we want this to be democratic, so we don't want an event where it's all people who we've just anointed and invited. So we want to figure out how to do a track for sort of invited industry people without letting that overwhelm the more bottom-up spirit of the larger event. So that's something we're working on. If people have ideas, I'd certainly welcome their thoughts.
Can I add one other issue too that I'd love to hear feedback on is that, this year we spent a lot of time in planning, trying to figure out how to get peer review as part of this, because, when you think about sort of the academic lifespan, if we don't have places to publish work that are discerning, that go through peer review, that have a lower acceptance rate, it's very hard for our junior scholars to get tenure in this domain if they don't have those vehicles and those sort of communities and, those vehicles that would allow them to document and demonstrate that their work is meeting our criteria. But making that work in a way that's inclusive, in a way that that serves those needs, but as Eric said, as Scott says, also manages to bring in design is really hard. So I'd be very interested in how the content of the conference is shaping up. I know what the program looks like, but does the mix feel right? Are there other things that we could be doing, especially for our junior scholars or our students who are interested in entering this field?
Hi, Liz Lawley from RIT. None of you will be surprised to know that I have opinions. But I will say, in this context, I think it's unlikely that you're going to hear from junior scholars or students who have concerns or criticism to stand up in the middle of the conference plenary and say, I wish you hadn't done this, or I wish you would do more than that. So
they can all go to you.
I would strongly...
You should represent.
See, the thing is, I have a bunch of constructive suggestions.
Awesome.
Right? But I don't know that this is the best way to present and formulate them. So what I'd like is if you all could think about what the best way is, because I asked 2 different organizers this week if I have feedback, what should I do? And both of them were like, I don't know. Maybe send it to Mimi. And that didn't feel like it was something well thought out. So rather than make specific suggestions, other than please, if I come back again, don't make me the last of 14 ignites on the last day of the conference with no social event following it. And that's what GLS did really well, right? Is there was a big social event at the end. And so there was a reason for people to stick around, right? I am willing to bet that there will be less than a quarter of the number of people in this room for the Ignite sessions today. And even the ones who stay, 14 Ignite sessions is too many. You can't process that many 5-minute talks. And from a math standpoint, 13 or 14 Ignites does not fit into an hour. Right. So that would be my Ignites are awesome, right? But they're only awesome if people can really absorb them. If you do too many, stuff gets lost, right? And you don't remember it, and you don't know who the person was that gave that talk. And then the other thing Ignites are really good at is sparking someone's interest in what you're doing so that they will come talk to you afterwards. If you put the Ignites at the end, you lose that. Right? Everybody's going to be gone, and they're going to be getting to planes and trains and god-awful commutes, and they will forget what that cool 5-minute thing was that they had.
That's a good point. So just so you know that there are prizes are going to be awarded to people who we'll give you more about it, but prizes are going to be awarded after the last Ignite. And
we have incentives.
But only to people who are here. Only to people who are here.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, and actually, I think any of us who are on the organizing committee should be able to receive suggestions. I know that, Mimi and Eric and I are meeting in a few weeks, and so certainly if you get anything to us.
We're happy to forward it to Mimi.
And we were going to announce it at the end of the session, but there is a survey for anonymous feedback too, so you don't have to, just in terms of, I think, Liz, I appreciate your breaking the ice on these issues. So we're trying to provide a range from totally anonymous vehicles for giving feedback to these very public ones for people to have an occasion to plug the interest group you want to do, to really be able to say to the community that you want to lead on something or an idea you have. So hopefully, there's everything from emailing Eric to the anonymous survey to standing up in front of 300 people. There's plenty of options.
Thank you.
Hi. So I am a public educator. I work in Colorado with 7th graders. And one of the things that I noticed here at the conference is that there's so much focus on informal education, which is incredible. It's hard to find the bridge to formal education, public education, and I would have loved to see more more things targeted toward formal education or toward bridging between informal and formal education. I've noticed that there's everybody I talk to, I haven't found many other people who are formal educators, who are in public education, or and so I think that another thing that could be done is to probably do more legwork if this is something that you guys are interested if this is an audience you guys are interested in, which I think is a valuable audience, to attract more formal educators into this process, especially because I think that campfire analogy, the summer camp analogy was really valuable in terms of how it feels like it's exciting to be here. It's really exciting, and we've been able to talk to so many people and get so many ideas, but there's a question of okay, what would that look like in a formal classroom? Mm-hmm. And I think bringing more public educators and more formal educators into this space could provide a lot of really valuable, like, further connections between what's happening in the informal education space and the formal education space. And so that's something that I would be really excited to see as a public educator moving forward.
And we'd love ideas on how to do that, because I totally agree with you.
I mean, I always tell my students that you can't test the game enough, but I also think in our field we can't be in public education classrooms enough. We don't, no matter how much time we try to spend in schools, we don't spend enough time in schools. So one of the thoughts that I had, I don't know what you guys think, is that we ought to at least consider having sort of threads that, as we announce, call for proposals, actually proposing threads that would, because the stuff we have is the stuff that people suggested, that they want brought here. But if we were more explicit about inviting certain things, maybe we'd get more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is John. I'm a junior researcher, if you will. I'm a third-year PhD student at the University of Washington. And it feels silly using a moment to complain when I'm in front of so many people. This is my big chance. But in terms of suggestions for improvement, besides maybe just like logistical factors like how to get in a paper and what to send where and what to expect and all of that, I think for me the biggest kind of piece of experience I can offer is that I am looking for 5 minutes with the most prominent, experienced people here, because that 5 minutes could change my life, even if it doesn't mean anything, or very much for you guys right now. So I'm kind of wondering, like, how do I access Mimi Izuko? How do I talk to her and get 5 minutes? Because, for me, like, I'm down here and you're up on a stage, and I'm wondering when's the right time for me to kind of like approach the most senior people and talk to them and kind of get their perspective.
Sorry, I'll go. One answer is the long breaks are really good times for that. But in terms of programmatically, something we did do at GLS is have those fireside chats, and that seems like maybe that's a good thing. So we would book about a half hour in a small room with no more than 20 people, and we'd shut the doors. You have to get there early. So it selects for, I guess, interest. But then Constance had really the DVD of the fire, the burning fire, and then just sit there and talk for an extended period of time about issues that are of interest to the people in the room. And those were really generative.
Yeah, you're right. We didn't have a format like that because it is hard, like during breaks, to like break into little groups of people. And then, at DML, we had experimented with kind of mentorship lunches where you could sign up for, but it was really difficult to coordinate. But I like this. I mean, does that sound like a format that might be?
That sounds awesome. Bring it back.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, okay, that's great. I feel like, we didn't want to turn it into like a formal kind of job type thing that they have at the big professional events, but something like that maybe. Yeah. That's a great idea. Thank you.
If you wouldn't mind emailing in or sending it to Mimi, of course. Keep the joke going. Just who's like some names of possible people, that would be great too. Because you're always hard to know who do people want to talk to.
Well, that's also the awkward thing, I have to say, quite frankly, is just to say, let me hold court. It just feels a little bit, I don't know, like what if nobody shows up?
So everyone always thinks that who's going to show up and then the room is packed. But we always did it by we would just pull all of the, sort of VIPs off of the speaker list. So, rather than, we sort of learned over the years, rather than propose them or recruit them, we just sort of set aside time for the keynotes and the organizing people and just some of the bigger names, and then we would shuffle them around some. So there could be, I have some ideas for how to make that kind of an easy sort of win. I also have to tell the gentleman who asked the question, who I can't see, but, the biggest, I have to say, the biggest gain is for the speakers. Like, actually, the speakers really like the chance to sit down and talk about work and what people are working on. And so it's actually a gift to the speakers more than it is a gift to the so-called junior researchers.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Maria. I will be starting as a computer science professor at Fashion Institute of Technology. Exciting, thank you. Just to piggyback off of what John said, I know at Games for Change last year, Constance was there, and Drew Davidson, and founder of Filament Games, blanking on her name, but
Dan. One of the Dans.
We had a early career something thing. It's an early career kind of event, and basically it happened the day before. You actually applied for it. There was a lot of PhD students, postdocs, first and second year junior faculty, and basically we got to sit down with Constance and Drew and everybody to talk about our concerns, where our career goes. One of my favorite questions was, does tenure even matter? And Constance was like, yeah, it does, but you know what? I get to do what I want to do, and you guys don't. So I thought that was really great. But it's true. So these kind of things, it just like didn't occur to me, but these amazing conversations happen. So maybe something like that could come. I know at the CHI conference, the Human Computer Interaction Conference, they also do an early career award pre-conference thing. So that would be good. Fireside Chats are great, but this one you apply and funding is given to them as well, so they can attend the conference for free. And I always thought that was a good addition. I came up here because I am resonating with Constance with the peer-reviewed process and publishing. So I realized, and I'm a former GLS comer, and I really love the GLS folks, and CLS seems to be doing a really good job, so I'm really excited. I am a little concerned in terms of publishing and how we might not be citing each other enough. So I got to publish at CHI for the first time, which is the #1 HCI conference. And what CS does really well is that they have a ranking system of all their ACM conferences. And this is top tier, second tier, third tier. And I think they really, really selfishly do well in citing their own. So when I was directed by my former advisor to write for CHI, she basically gave me a list of people that I must quote. Mm-hmm. And they do a good job of, if it's a 10-page paper, usually it is, they do not have a limitation on the references. So that doesn't go into the limitation, which made me had like 99 references, but who cares? I quoted everybody I could possibly think of in the CHI community. And they do that. And apparently, informally, people get pissed off if you don't quote your own, if it's in the relevant field. And I think GLS and CLS, all DML people, we should be more selfish about that and make sure that we cite each other and make sure we become the #1 by referencing more, make it on Google Scholars, make it ACM, make it top tier. So that's one thing that I just wanted to share. And one last thing, sorry about this. I've been trying to attend sessions that had really nothing to do with me, and I would highly encourage that. The things that I get to learn and the people I get to meet is fascinating, and actually you do find connections there. So I would encourage, especially earlier career people, to find something that I would never attend and just go and see what it's like, because I think it will be a great learning opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for those calls to action. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Owen, who kind of took initiative to push us on starting to think about the early career format. So we love leadership in that area too, for folks who might want to get involved. So that's great.
Crystal Martin, have a Facebook group for the early career people. That's how we're all staying in touch. We had a mixer on Thursdays, so we're active, get active.
Yeah. So for those, because Owen wasn't mic'd, there is a Facebook group for early career folks, and there was a mixer earlier in the event. So hopefully that energy will keep going.
Good morning. I'm Vanessa Monterrosa with the Los Angeles Unified School District. So 2 comments. One, you had mentioned about inviting industry partners, and I think, I won't speak for everybody, but I've really appreciated not being bombarded by vendors being at this conference. Totally. My inbox, and just both being able to just wander around the halls and just being able to just have time to think and process and meet people, and not have to worry about hiding my badge because I'm with LA Unified or anything like that. The second comment, to piggyback on the formal education comment before me, I think you kind of touched upon it, Scott, in terms of calling for research. As practitioners, our team, which is the Instructional Technology Initiative within the Division of Instruction, we're a small but mighty team, but we try really hard to bridge the gap between research and practice. And so if there was a way that this conference could, and Constance mentioned about junior scholars, we would love someone to come and look at the things that we're trying to do in integrating connected learning in LA Unified. Please, junior scholars, reach out to us. If there was a way we could formalize that in the conference, we would really love to do that. And if you need any thought partners, LA Unified is very happy to partner.
So teacher researchers, we need to sort of like create a strand for teacher researchers, basically.
And a bit of a matchmaking service, too, I think.
Yeah. And by the way, talking about industry was not about having vendors here. It was about having, in fact, at Sandbox, if you came and all you did was hype your own product, you never were invited back. No, it would be about people who are actually doing interesting work, but are doing it on the industry side.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pretty much what she said. I'm Sarah. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm a service learning coordinator. Where I'm from, we don't call it MIT, we call it MIT. So that's how it's spelled. Yeah, thanks for an amazing conference, and thanks for everyone who's been so kind and just so inspiring. Everyone's so smart here. One thing that I'd like to add is I really like the breaks. One thing is, though, the 2-hour break is a tad bit long. I think there was some conversation around, like, maybe there could be like little mini sessions, like a walking tour, or maybe we could have like gone to like the MIT museum, but then we're like, I don't know where that is, and now we have to go. So maybe, when we go to California, if there's like some like close by spots within that lunch break, if someone to like organize like a route and how to get there and get back on time, it might be really fun. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I just wanted to thank you guys. My name is Joe Marcantonio. I'm a teen librarian in a Midwest town right outside of Chicago. I came here and I was completely out of my element and felt like this place was going to be completely above me. And I felt completely welcomed. I'm going to go home with video content creators, contacts. I'm buying Owen's game for my library. I've made so many connections, how to bring hip-hop into the library, so many things for teens. I'm bringing all of my librarians from the Midwest back next year. This conference has been amazing. And for any app developers in the room, I've got your $1 million idea. Michelle King, a daily dose of Michelle King.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Eric Verlige. I'm a postdoc here at MIT, and I just wanted to comment on something that I thought worked really well. I think the workshops were fantastic. It was great to be able to work with partners at the conference, work with the other attendees, and get to meet people that way. I think that just worked phenomenally. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Hello, my name is Eko Nugroho. I'm from Indonesia. Through this conference, I'm quite realizing that Indonesia is perhaps the most invisible country in the US. So that's for the good reason. Seems like our country don't have enough problem to share to the world. So, but anyway, my point is that you guys have a lot of brilliant ideas here, and Indonesia can really use some of the ideas. So would like to invite some of you to look around Indonesia, and perhaps we can implement those ideas in Indonesia. Second point is that I'm really getting inspired by the whole conference, and now in motion we're gonna make, quote unquote, the learning festival in Indonesia, Games for Learning Festival, in the next 6 months. So I would like to invite all of you also to look at it, and I hope we can connect it through it, and it will be established in the next 6 months. It's already on motion in several days. We talk with a lot of people, and this really brings a lot of things. So I would like to invite all of you to join it. Thank you.
Fantastic.
I'll just throw in, because
surf trip.
Lots of people don't know it. Indonesia is the 4th largest country in the world by population, right after the U.S. So it's a big place that where we could have an impact, collectively. So.
Good morning, everyone.
Good
morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Mamta Shah. I'm a postdoc at Drexel University. I second on many of the comments that have been made here, particularly for early career scholars. And I was recently participating in the early career workshop at ICLS in London, and I learned amazing stuff. And I cannot emphasize on the need for having such opportunities for early career scholars to learn from many of the senior folks like you. One of the things that I have wanted to know as an early career scholar, I know this importance of publishing and all of that, the concept of academic dating and establishing collaborations and how do you work with people, how do you create projects and not feel like someone's stealing your work, you're getting equal recognition. So, if you do consider having opportunities for early career scholars, if all of you up here and several of you, if you can sort of guide us as to how do you work with people in academia and, just collaborate on ideas and sort of symbiotically grow and contribute to the academia and to our community. And also, please do invite Michelle King again.
Yassas, or hello in Greek. Efcharisto, or thank you. My name is Apostolos. I also go by AK. I work at UMass Boston. I wear many hats. This is just one of them. I'm trying to learn from the humor keynote.
You're winning with the shirt. It's a great shirt.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to thank everybody who came before me in the queue because it lowered the anxiety barrier. And I'd like to thank the organizers for making this conference accessible, both in terms of being able to come here and connect the silos, because a lot of things that I go to are very siloed, be it ed tech or be it disciplinary, like applied linguistics, teaching language, and also cost, because as I am a doctoral student and I'm trying to figure out where stuff fits, cost is a big thing. So thinking ahead at early academics, early career academics, and I'm at a few stages before that, I would like to give a call for change, because while I do understand there are games that we have to play to cite the people in our field, that also gives a lot of privilege to people who are already established. And what we need to do is look at what other interesting people are doing, people that we don't necessarily know about because they're not established, and help build our work off that as well. So while we do play these games so that we can get job security, I also call for going out there to our individual institutions to change the system so that it becomes more about what we do and not the games we play to have the job security that we need. I don't know how we get there, but I'm pretty sure that we can all connect to figure this out. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So if I might respond, peer review is not a game we play. If there's ever been a time in history that I am deeply concerned about our understanding of reason and fact and peer review, it's right now. So I just have to speak out to say that in academia, we do peer review because the way that we vet new ideas is through the experts that are in that area, right? So when I say creating ways in which we are creating rigorous peer review systems, publication systems, I don't see those as a game to play at all. I see those as very, very serious. And to me, they are not merely about creating pathways of careers for junior faculty. They're also the way in which we are able to collectively discern what is the best scholarly work. And I take that really seriously, especially now, because I'm sorry I'm on a soapbox, everybody, but I had to get on one. I take it really seriously right now because I feel like the notion that we ought to ground our designs and our claims in facts about the world and to make sure we understand what the limits of our claims are seems more at under threat right now than ever before. There is a huge streak in America right now that would say that expertise does not matter, and that our vetting systems for doing what I consider empirical work are no better than politics. And I would say that the only way you could believe that is to not know much about how the system works. So I think your point's well taken about perhaps creating ways in which new innovative, ideas from younger scholars are able to enter our conversation. I think that you're absolutely right there. And so thinking about how to do that is sort of, to me, a design question. But I do take really seriously the idea of peer review and creating those, I guess, those really exceptional systems that do the winnow and sifting so that we can get toward, I guess, toward understanding of reality and not just ideology. So if I misled you on what I meant by that, I apologize. But I do want to take that seriously because in the end of the day, I think that like the games that I personally study, they will come and go, but what we come to understand about them and the truth claims that we make are the things that endure. So I think we have to be very, very serious about that. Sorry to rant.
Thank you for that. I realize you can't see me, so you can't see my head bobbing in agreement.
Okay, good.
So I'll vocalize my head bobbing.
I know the point you're making. I totally get it.
My issue is not with peer review. I think peer review is important, and I think that getting feedback from our colleagues and improving our work is important. I just think that the way that we have segmented top tier, mid tier, low tier, and the sort of reputation economy that we have is important, but let's not artificially inflate it by saying you must cite these 5 scholars to be taken seriously. It's more about the quality of the work rather than just only who you cite. That's my issue.
Yeah. So making it blind peer review, but also I think we can create ways in which, so what I hear the previous speaker saying is that we need to do a better job. And I think Liz Lawley's still in the room because Liz, I'm going to turn around and email you for help on this because you, in GLS, you really hammered us around our proceedings. We didn't even divide up in a way that you could get it, like find articles online so people could cite them. I mean, there are these like really stupid things that keep our work from being circulated in the ways it ought to. So let's work on that. And anyone who's interested, you can email me directly because I think that's a problem we ought to tackle right now. And I'm happy to take emails and at least help organize a group around it.
Great. And I think we probably, there's two,
should be the last
there's two comments, and then I think we probably have to transition to the closing.
Hello. I thank you for putting this conference on. It was really fun. I got a lot out of it. I am going to be taking this back to my community of New Mexico. It's a rural place. It's the 5th largest state. It's only got 2 million people, so it's very spread out. And and so one of the conversations I had brought up to Mimi yesterday was where, I feel like the rural people are getting left out and the rural voice. And so I'm going to speak on behalf of them because we need to hear them. We need to know and somehow include them. And so you have connections. You can make things happen. I understand the funding is not out there at this moment, but maybe if you speak about it, I'm speaking about it, right? Where, so a lot of this networked learning in the way that you speak about works in cities. It does not translate in like frontier places. It does not translate. We have transportation issues. And that's one of them. There's not even grocery stores in some towns. And so it's a plea, really. Yeah, thank you. What's that? Well, yeah, and at times we don't have internet connections, or there is internet, but the internet goes down and it's shoddy, and so we have these issues, and so I'm thinking about like how can I take this back to our community, to our communities, and figure out ways to like break it down in a way that okay, here's Plan B if the technology is not working, and what is it that we need to include, or what is it that we need to actually really, what does it look like in rural places? And so,
we're doing a fair amount of work in the developing world, and it's completely realize it's very different from New Mexico in most ways, but those issues are the same. And so if we really want to have an impact beyond, certainly beyond the big population centers in the U.S., then we do have to think about those issues and figure out. And again, maybe it's thinking about whether there's a strand for that.
Yeah, and the risk of not doing it is just to contribute to this polarization of the way our communication and our community building is happening. I mean, it's really important that we work against these sort of implicit this is another form of implicit bias, really, that a lot of our work is kind of urban assuming. And so I think it's a really important point. And we'd love ideas on how to do better.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, so my name is Jen Verhoeven, and as of May, I am a new PhD from the University of Rochester.
Congratulations.
And this is my way of saving a few seconds on my afternoon Ignite, because now I just introduced myself to it. So, piggybacking on what the woman before me, and I missed her name because I was seeing the back of her, said, I'm also an entrepreneur. So the past 3 months have been extremely terrifying and also cool too. So just very quickly, if you are rural teachers, elementary school teachers, or principals, please come see me, because as part of my entrepreneurship, I need to interview people to understand their needs. But that was actually the first thing I wanted to talk about. Is there's a lot of entrepreneurs out here too, and if you want to bring business in, grow it. So I would love to see forums where there's people that give entrepreneurs advice, because what I found is that my place was not in academia as it is. My place is creating new paths in the world. And it's scary, but I know there's other people out there that do that too for PhDs, so I would love to talk to them.
That's a great
The other thing is just 2 suggestions. First is, what's life beyond the conference? Where can we sustain these conversations in the digital world? And I know I'm part of some digital communities, and what they also do is ask an expert days. So they go online, and for 3 days, anybody can post. So it's asynchronous, but they can post a question to an expert, and then they have usually 2 people that then come back and answer those questions on the board, which is very helpful for everybody else too. The other thing I mean about sustainability is, I'm still having my fangirl moment right now, because a lot of you are in my thesis, and it's terrifying to, once you introduce yourself, that's one thing, but then you're in front of the computer going, I really need to learn from this person, and this email is just gonna sound like I'm an idiot. So I would love to know, how do we as new scholars reach out to you and create these relationships with you in ways that are productive for both of us. So yeah, and then the second thing, so I was gonna pause because I want to hear from that, but I just want to put this in before I forget. Help board, maybe during these conferences have a big old classified help board to say, hey, I would love to talk to you, and stick a Post-it note up there with your contact information, and then people can take that, or you can say, I'm a whatever, and I would love to connect with other people, and that's just a simple, we check the help board or something. So anyways, but yes, if you could please tell me, what do we do about those emails to you?
Well, I think your broader point of sustaining online community, we should do that. We're people who should know how to do that. And I think there's people in this community who probably are creative innovators, and we need help. We are committed to keeping the Connected Learning Alliance newsletter and site open for curating resources. It's just a place that we invite you to send us stuff, whether it's emails or just stuff you're doing. We try to curate a weekly newsletter. So, and we just need help. We want all this to happen, but it's, me and Jameson and Amanda and Claudia, just trying to cobble things together. And then we've got a big boost with our partners at MIT helping. But, it's just people needing to do work and get engaged. And there's an open invitation for, webinars or whatever might be fun for people to continue conversations. Folks like Owen and Remy have stepped up to do a bunch of things. So we really, and Kira organizing CLT, if there's something you want to organize that we can support, we would love to amplify
anything that you want to do. So there's an open invitation for that. We also I'm going to put out my wish list to this community. So the other thing that we really wanted to do at the event, which we just quite frankly didn't have the bandwidth to do, is to do, like people mention, more playful events. But it's like we want like something playful and fun and game-like to engage people and get conversations going. I mean, you're the community to design this stuff. So that's also an open invitation. You know, the event is for next year was a great occasion. It's a platform if you want to do something that is actually more playful than the traditional kind of seminar style stuff. That's also is on my wish list. So I'll put that out there.
I know we're out of time, but I think the email answer I would give is it's okay to keep it short.
Yes, thank you for answering the actual question.
Hey, have you thought about this? And then, because at some point, if it takes as much time, I'll just answer because we can have a conversation. It's okay to keep it short.
Yeah. And if you don't mind staying for just a few minutes, we're just going to segue into...
so maybe we say bye to Constance.
Constance.
Thank you, Constance.
Can I have one more last statement first?
Go.
Thanks for letting me tap in. I'm sorry I'm not there in person. I'm very jealous. But I also just wanted to make a very loud and clear invitation that we just sort of conjoin these three communities, but probably half that event is new people. And I just want to make sure everyone hears loud and clear. There is so much organizing and engagement, kind of leadership opportunities. Like, this is our community and our event. So I guess it's an all hands on deck kind of thing, right? Like, it happens and it evolves and improves every year because people participate and they're willing to step up and pick up a shovel and say, we're going to do the early career summit and we're going to do a classified board. So I just really want everyone to get involved in whatever ways you're able and interested. And thanks for having me.
Bye, Constance.
Bye.
So you're gonna.
Am I gonna?
Next slide.
Right. So some of you may already know this, but we're very happy to announce that we do have the dates for next year's Connected Learning Summit, which will be at UC Irvine. I don't know if can advance the slide, in the fall. So we are going to be taking this format where we'll MIT and UCI will take turns hosting, so that we're hopefully, not privileging one region over the other, but also it helps us keep sort of costs and logistics low to be able to hold them at the same institutions. So we expect to go back and forth each year. And then the reason why we do it in the summer, MIT, we have to do it in the summer for scheduling reasons. And then in the fall, we'll be doing it at Irvine. So also, I know seasonality is different for people in different sectors and professions. So part of what we're trying to do is accommodate different time schedules. So I'm hoping that will work, and I don't think it conflicts with major events. The slide is not advancing.
No,
so
we're getting a signal that the slide's not working, but...
October 2nd to the 4th next year.
And it's too far ahead, but our hope would be that it'll be roughly this time 2 years hence, here again. So, well, this time in August, yeah.
Okay, and then we also wanted to take a moment to just thank all the people who've been working tirelessly behind the scenes to make this event happen. Scott, you want to?
Yeah, so...
Eric, our fearless host.
So first of all, very quickly, want to thank our partners on the organizing team. We had it was there. So thanks again to everyone else who helped. To me, one of the great thrills of coming here was finally seeing Sam on stage. What a fabulous stage presence he had. I got used to seeing him just in video conference calls, but everyone who's been on the committee has been great to work with. So, and then the other thing, people keep saying, how's it going running this thing? And I haven't had to break a sweat, but that's because there are other people who are really doing extraordinary work, and those are the people we really want to thank. And from UCI, we want to thank Amanda. And you have to come up and get your. And Jameson.
Jameson's managing the live stream, tweeting.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
And it may be.
Thanks,
yeah. And from my perspective, I don't think this event happens without Claudia. She's just. Do you do weddings too? And from the Media Lab, Lauren? Is it? Laura, sorry. We haven't met before, so. But thank you.
Thanks.
And from our own lab, is Colton here?
Yay,
at the registration
Colton.
desk? And our incredible volunteer organizer, Emily. Is Emily here? She is, good. And then somewhere there's a slide that lists all of
there
the,
we go. Yeah.
all the people who actually volunteered. And thank you to all of you, too.
And then just the survey. And
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And so the next slide, if we could have it. Oh, yeah, the two companies who've been working behind the scenes were great. We just want to thank them both, the AV people and the caterer. And then there's a slide with the survey. So you have all day to fill out the survey. Yep. But you don't get a prize unless you fill out the survey and show up for the Ignite Talks.
So we'll be doing a giveaway at the end of the Ignite Talks, where everybody who's filled out the survey would be eligible to get a signed copy of some of these wonderful books from our keynote speakers, our organizing committee. I think you signed your book.
Yeah, we'll sign our
you'll
book.
sign your book.
Yeah.
We have some of Baratunde's books, Joey's books, Mitch. And it looks like we have Barry Joseph's book too, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to, choose which signed copy you'd like if you stay till the bitter end.
Yeah.
There's good stuff happening.
It won't be so bitter. So.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate your input.
Thanks.